I wrote down a few different things we could get into. I mean, I think well, I don't know what I could say in terms of this. And obviously, because we're not live, I could edit out anything on like the team house. But prior to me booking this, I remember, I'll keep it vague, but you were originally like, I don't know if I can come in because of how my job is and everything. And right now we're hearing about like the restructuring of everything in government. You're the one guy who still works in government. So whatever you can say of like your take of where things are headed right now, positive or negative, because it seems like everything is being shuffled around.
Yeah. So, without, saying where I work exactly, it's tough. It's mostly more negative than positive. Like I'll say blanket statement, I have no issue whatsoever with, cutting the fat, getting rid of bloat, exposing fraud, all that other stuff. But in no way, shape, or form do I agree with how this is being done. These are people's lives. Whatever anybody thinks, these are people's lives. They have children, they have families, to just tell them, you're gone if you don't answer this email is just ludicrous. There's a young girl who works in my office who she just started, I don't know, maybe 6 months ago or something like that, little less than a year. And always bubbly, always laughing and talking to everyone and everything. And then I think it was last week, I was told that it just finally hit her what was going on. And that whole day, she would just cry all day long because she didn't know what was going to happen to her. She's still there. She's okay for now, I guess. But we do have a few people who took the early resignation. And I know people who were let go because they're at the VA or whatever. One of which, although he hasn't been let go, my son works for the VA. So this stuff hits home for me. I don't give a shit, what your political, lean is. These are human beings. And, so I feel this stuff personally. Whatever happens to me happens. I'm about 4 years from my 30. I have about 26 years federal service. So if I got to go, I go. But I feel for people who they don't have that time. And don't necessarily have that security. And it's a scary time. It really is. So.
Is it that if you don't answer the email, you get fired though? I mean,
that's what they're saying.
If that's the well, then how hard is it to say I showed up for work, I wrote a report, I don't know, whatever your job. My job, I'm working with the National Flood Insurance Program. Mm-hmm. I'm an independent adjuster, and I manage a team of adjusters for FEMA. And I looked at a file today. I made a contract to revise. I mean, if that's all it is, why is it? Is it a bravado thing? I'm not going to do it because I'm a federal.
No.
I would ask this question: when you worked for GRS, did you check your email every day?
If I was in charge, I had to. I'd be independent of where I was at, but luckily I was never in charge because I'm a shitbag, and they would never put me in charge. But that if I was allowed and I was part of the C2 or C1, whatever we called it at that point in time, Kandahar was, but I didn't mind doing that because I had Rebel in the office with me. So we'd go in there and bullshit and hang out. But to say that I was running a country TL, I never was. I never was a country TL. I'll say it right now, I never would. So I can't answer if I say I would or wouldn't, but
I mean,
I do right now. I mean, ask Ian with FEMA and NFIP. I'm on my computer 8 hours a day.
Yeah.
Making sure people are getting paid and fighting with FEMA and the NFIP to get people paid.
Yeah.
They want to cut $300 off a $250,000 claim because we didn't dot an I or cross it. Seriously. It's like, and I'm battling with them there. So what I'm getting at is, I think I would have. I'm doing it now. But then again, I never had that really responsibility except for when I was a C2 in Kandahar, which I would, but I didn't think that was much of a job, just going and hanging out with Rebel in the HQ and bullshitting and laughing and making fun of everybody and then answering a few emails, and I'd get out and go to the gym. And then
because my reaction, I feel like, was the same as Chris, as someone who doesn't work in government, never has, because I did see these government employees like on CNN sending over showing the email on screen like it was a traumatic thing. And to me, I was like, this looks like an end of day report for like any business where it just says like, what did you do today?
Yeah.
And to me, that was just my reaction was, what's so bad about this?
So like having conversations with like friends of mine who work at VA, they have their own internal mechanisms for tracking their progress day to day. And so it's this question of like, where is this email coming from? Why is this person asking me to replicate what I've already done? And so I guess that's sort of the issue there.
Yeah. And for me, so the blanket answer to your question was we were told not to answer it. That's why I didn't answer it, because we were told, like, we got the email. I think it was a Sunday night. My son actually texted me with a screenshot and said, "Dad, did you get this email?" And I saw it and I'm like, no, it was a Saturday night. I'm like, no, I didn't. So I took that screenshot, sent it to our boss, and she said, "I'm just hearing about it now. We're going to figure this out." And this was a Saturday. So by Monday morning, we had gotten an email from, I can't say because then it'll go to where I work, from bigger bosses than us, like DC, saying, "You will not answer this. You don't need to answer this." Other people were told, "No, you will answer it." Not within my organization, but we were told not to. Would I have a problem with answering if it was, number one, if it came from an email address that I actually recognize, HR.gov or whatever? No, absolutely not. But no, it's not hard for me to throw 5 things on that I did because we're doing something every day. But given the atmosphere, the question automatically comes like, not only where is this coming from, but what are they doing with this information? Are they going to use it now? You didn't, like you said, Chris, you didn't dot an I and cross a T. You can't justify your job. So now we're going to.
Gotcha.
Yeah. So if it was any other normal atmosphere, quote unquote normal atmosphere, I wouldn't have a problem with doing it. And if I was told to do it by my bosses, I would have answered it easily.
By your supervisor,
Yeah,
your superior.
easily,
You're getting some, and that makes sense to me because I'm the same way. If I'm working with the 15 people that I have under me and somebody else outside of our little sphere that is working for the same company says, "Hey, you need to do," no, you listen to what I'm telling you, because you do get some cross mogination going on. You get, and then you've got manipulation. Then you've got, that's why we don't have conversations outside of our right and left limits.
Absolutely.
I get that. And that's
if it had been, and this seems to be the pattern, and this is where I'm having a problem. If it had been, my son sent this to me on a Saturday night, and that's the pattern. It's like it's coming in on a Friday night or a Saturday night when nobody is around. My son happened to see it on Friday because he has another phone that, he gets his work emails. It's coming in. And if it had been, "Hey, you have a week, 2 weeks to get this into us," be different. But it's Saturday night. You have to have it in by Monday at midnight. Not necessarily hard to do, but that's for me. I know what I did all week. Now you take that young girl that I was telling you about. She's got to hunt around. She's already freaking out. Has to make sure that it's perfect. Is this right? Do I send it? Then 11:59 Monday comes and she's not sure. She just hits send. The time constraints to me are just, I don't know if we're.
Do you think it was planned?
It's bullshit.
Friday?
Absolutely. Absolutely. It's designed to, I believe it's designed to sow fear and, people are just not sure what's going to happen. Plus you have people, I was looking at social media and I saw some thread where people were like, "This is the first time I'm hearing about it because I'm on leave right now. I'm not even around." So now they had to go back to their bosses and figure out what they have to do. So
do you think there's possibly, though, the higher ups being like, "Don't answer this email"? That could just be politically motivated of, okay, we don't like the current administration, so we're not going to comply with what they're trying to do here.
Absolutely.
But
However,
Pete Hegseth saying not to answer the email.
You have some.
I didn't even know that.
Yeah, he said that.
Not to answer.
What's going on?
Yeah.
Well, luckily, working within this realm and working with FEMA right now, working with the National Flood, and we're still trying to handle these hurricanes and there's catastrophes. And if it's not coming from a direct line supervisor, then it shouldn't be coming from anyone. It doesn't. And I would tell, and I do tell, if something comes from NFIP or FEMA and it comes to an adjuster that works for me, they're actually going to hit me up first anyway and say, "Hey, do I have to answer this?" and then I'm gonna reach out. I'm not gonna do it and tell them no because it's politically driven. I'm gonna reach out and say, hey, you need to come through me. This is the chain. This is how it works. Is this legit? So if I'm a supervisor, say don't answer it because it's a politically motivated or because it's a dick measuring contest, then no, that's wrong.
Yeah, and none
But
of
if
that
it's-
was said. And
but
you know, just to be clear, but
if it's from a superior that's saying, hey, let me check on this for
Yeah.
you to make sure, and I will tell you if you need to or not.
exactly.
I'm good with that.
Mhm.
And if it's not going that way, then yeah, it is fucking wrong. They're
Yeah.
doing it wrong. Good initiative, bad fucking judgment.
Absolutely.
And I get that. And that's good to hear because I don't know all that. All I know is people aren't answering. I'm like, well, shit, I just an adjuster answer 8 questions
Mhm.
for me today. I
Yeah.
needed it.
Yeah.
But it's his requirement. He's supposed to do it. So just knock it
Absolutely.
out. But he's coming from me.
Mhm.
And I'm his next chain of command. I'm that guy. And it came from my chain of command saying we needed to do this. So just like the military, that's right. But if it's just saying, hey, you need to do this on a Friday or I'm going to fire you, well, who the fuck are you? Who
Yeah.
are you?
Yeah. And then
that's wrong.
the short
I-
history, you know, along with that was the resignations, the voluntary resignations. Again, I said this to Jack earlier. If these things have been spaced out over 6 months, a year, whatever it is, and say, hey, this is what's coming. You know, at phase 1, you know, voluntary resignations. Phase 2, this, that. But what we have is, again, we have a Friday night voluntary resignation. It comes from an email address that nobody knows. HR, everybody's like, what the fuck is this? And then it's like, you have a week to decide potentially the rest of your life. And so when you have that, and then it was, you hit reply, resignation in the body, send it off. You were told, initially we were told, you've now resigned. You can log off, go home. From now until September 30th, you get paid. And then September 30th, your resignation is effective. You're done. So some people actually did that. They took it. I forget what the number is. They took it. They went home. Well, then a week later, it was, wait a minute, come back. You have to wait until it's approved. Now you've got to reach all these people who resigned and went home. They have to come back in the office, which we have a couple, 3, I think, who took it from our building, took it. They have to now sit in the office every day until it's approved. We just found out that I think February, when was the 28th? Is that today, tomorrow?
That today? Tomorrow's the 20th.
Yeah, tomorrow's the 20th. So as of tomorrow, it's effective. But these people had already gone home. They'd already logged off. They'd already turned in their equipment. And, you know, so all of that chaos, and now it's answer these 5 questions or you're fired. It's like, what do I take seriously? You know, do I even listen to this? Because it's from the same email.
Yeah.
You know, so it was just, yeah.
Well, that's where leadership steps up. It's got they got to step in and say, man, and be willing to take the heat round. Believe me, I get it, man. I've taken a few already. Stepped by FEMA for defending that's what you're there for defending my guys.
Yeah.
I was just going to ask, though, because like the way you started this, where you said you're all for trimming the fat, getting rid of certain jobs. I think it's just going to be a tough thing to do that. And there's probably just going to be obstacles in the beginning. I mean, we all heard about during the Biden administration, the like insane amount of IRS agents that they brought over that are really unnecessary, and that they're going to track everyone's bank account. If there's more than, what was it, like $600 or $6,000 in a bank account, they're going to be able to have access to your bank account. I, at one point, went to a hiring event for federal air marshals because they have these giant hiring events for federal air marshals. And then I saw, I think it was the head of the Federal Air Marshal Union or something. Her name is Sonia something. I spoke about it on the show with Sarah Adams. And like, she came out and said they're not even like tracking terrorists anymore. They're just kind of on flights escorting illegal immigrants from state to state. And I go, all right, there's a ton of fucking government jobs that do not need to be there that we're all paying for.
Yeah.
So like, as someone who works in government, and for me, someone who's never worked in government, just talking about you, like, how do you go about that? I don't think there's like an easy way to do this. So there probably are going to be obstacles in the beginning until they get it right.
And I agree that, of course, any anything of this magnitude, whether it's, federal, whether it's military, civilian, whatever it is, there's always going to be hiccups, private sector, all that stuff. But I think the problem is that it, again, was just slash and burn right from the beginning. And again, these are people's lives. You can cut positions and still place people other places. It's the whole, do this or you're gone thing is what bothers me. And again, I'm not speaking for the government.
Did it actually say that though? Because I saw like the emails on CNN where it just said, answer these questions. I didn't see anything that says, or you're gone.
No, it said on the email, it said, you tell us 5 things that you did this past week. And then the last thing it says was, you have until Monday midnight to answer this question. Failure to answer this email will be taken as a resignation.
Oh, okay. I didn't see that.
Which is
President Musk also.
Yeah, which is crazy to tell someone we're taking this as your resignation, or basically you're being fired. It's not a resignation, you're being fired. So yeah, that's where I have a huge problem with it. I mean, I have my other issues with all of this, but yeah, it's just, for me, it's the human element. Maybe it's naive. I get it. Like, what about cutting programs vice people? To start with that, cut useless, not necessarily useless, but programs that are outdated or are not making the impact that they were set out to have. Cut those programs first and then reallocate those people somewhere else. But don't.
What if there aren't really use for the people? Because I personally, I am someone who like to shrink government. I mean, anytime that a division in the private sector gets eliminated, like those people lose their jobs and have to find something else. I just learned today that I think it was Rachel Maddow's entire staff got fired, right? Mm-hmm. Those are people. They're going to have to find something else to do. I kind of think government should be handled the same way. If there's like a sector where we don't need these thousands of people, you're going to have to find something else to do. That's my take. But
I agree, man. But I mean, like, for instance, yesterday, like they fired something like 2,000 people from Veterans Affairs. It includes like therapists. Like it's not just like non-essential personnel. They're like people who actually did things.
And that's, I agree with Jack on that, because you should be cutting from the top down, man, not from the soldiers on up.
Yeah.
I can use FEMA as an example because I've been with FEMA and the NFIP for 20 some years. I was an adjuster. I mean, that was no joke. That's what I did on my off time. So it kept me sane. And there's 4 freaking directors for FEMA that do the exact same freaking thing. They're all getting paid millions of dollars. It's the same thing. There's an Office of Resiliency. What the fuck is that? A deputy that gets paid $500,000. Now, do you need to go and cut and fire all the examiners and the judge? No, those are the people on the front line that are dealing with everyone. It's up top. That's so. If you're going to start cutting, you start cutting where you're supposed to. Up top, when there's 4 positions for a guy that does the same job, and they're all sys level, and they're all making millions of dollars, and you don't need 4 of them. You need 1.
It's the McKinsey consultants that you can cut.
Is that what's McKinsey? Could tell me what that is.
McKinsey is like the biggest consulting firm in the country. And I mean, they typically come in and McKinsey is New York City paid them like $6 million to do a study to tell us that we need trash cans.
I remember that.
Yeah.
Holy crap.
There's a whole book out there about them at this point. But I mean, it's just, typical, what you were alluding to there, I think, Chris.
There was so much clowning on X about that with your favorite mayor, Eric Adams, with the trash can, showing like this new innovative thing that we're going to be using.
Oh, my God. And I think, too, another mistake of the way it's being done is you're cutting out the future of the federal government. Like this girl, I'm going to keep coming back to her. She was like on fire for this job. Me, I'm like the cynical old man who's like, yeah, okay. But she was like on fire. She came to work happy. She loved the job. And it's like, now you're ripping part of the future of these agencies.
You did, yeah. The morale.
Probably
the morale
mention the probationary employees.
What's that?
The probationary.
Yeah, that's
employees.
What she is. She's probationary.
And people think, or some people think, that when you say probationary, it means they're in trouble for something.
Yeah, no. No, like these people are I don't think she's even, well, she's gotten at least a mid-year review. But these people, most of these people are getting either A, they don't have an evaluation at all, a review, or they're getting above average marks on their reviews, but they're being told, and that's another thing, their termination email is saying for performance. That's a flat out lie. I don't care who agrees with me, who doesn't. You flat out lied and said that this person is not performing up to par, and that's why they're being terminated, and that's bullshit. Because
I'm sorry, their immediate supervisor said that during the eval?
No,
or that came from some outside.
That came from
that came from a McKinsey source. I guess I must
Yep. Yeah. So think about now, take this young girl. She now has to go to another, place to try to find a job. Are you going to give, is whoever sent that email going to give her a letter saying, no, it was, that was an error, admin error?
She's
like
hosed.
No, she's screwed. And that's bullshit. And I just can't get on board with it. I thought about all this before we came on air, and I was like, I don't want to, overblow it or talk out of turn. But this is how.
And that's the thing. I actually do.
Real.
Well, I was going to say, I really do know Jason as a guy who's extremely level-headed, and also I think a lot of people say, "Oh, I'm like moderate politically," but then you talk to them and they're, "Look, I'm further to the right. I know that." When I talk to you, I actually never really know where you're coming from politically. So it's very rare that I hear you get heated up about something like this.
Yeah.
So I know that when you are heated about something, it's coming from a very genuine place.
Yeah. Yeah. And I would be, I know people will probably say it's bullshit, but I would be fired up about this even if I was not in the federal government, because I am a people person. I feel, what's that term, empath, whatever the hell.
Yeah.
Empathy. Yeah.
Let's throw some crystals on the floor. I don't know, but I
Burn some
always
sage.
look at things from the human point of view, and I know what it feels like. Not necessarily be fired from a job, but I know what it feels like to have to leave somewhere. I did not leave. People who know me know I did not leave CIA under good circumstances. I did not. I had a bitter taste in my mouth.
Hey, look, I did too. Well,
Yeah. And
You do
and I
not
know
feel
what
the
failure
love.
feels like. I know how all that stuff feels. So I keep thinking back to that girl, and I keep starting to say her name, but I'm not going to that young girl. Like every day that she comes in, she has to fire up her laptop and like grit her teeth and not know what the hell is going to be there when she gets there. And I just think it's bullshit. Yes, it could happen. If it's going to happen, let it happen over a certain period of time, not over a week. A week is bullshit. This is just, I'm sorry.
are any of the uppers, the directors, the deputy directors, are they losing their jobs, or they're the ones that are taking the buyouts because they're going to get a great retirement anyway? Are any of that's where it needs to be?
Yeah.
Again, that's where the trimming needs to come from, not down
Yeah.
here.
I don't think so. Not that I know of. At least none of our immediate bosses are either taking the buyouts or are being canned. I don't think so. Again, tiptoeing around it where I work. If you work in a quote unquote national security related position, I think it's also law enforcement, stuff like that. You're pretty much safe. But if you work in a quote unquote support role for national security, you're fair game. You're fair game. But I haven't heard of any higher ups that I know of who have either taken it or are on the chopping block. Which
And I never thought about that until we just talked about it now. And you're right. I haven't seen anything in the media about. And with FEMA, none. None of them. The one that was that was responsible for the email with the Trump signs. Yeah, I mean. Yeah, but that had nothing to. That just had to do with just ethics,
That's
man.
personal.
I mean,
Yeah.
Well, remember
being
she
dumb.
said that was coming from higher up. I don't know if there was really truth to that.
It was coming from some higher, but again, that's one of the 8 million deputy directors and directors that FEMA has. I mean, there's so many of them, and even on the private side that works with the flood insurance, it is corporate. It's top heavy. There's too many damn chiefs to do, and that are getting paid 6-7-figure salaries, and there needs to be one. And I just know from my experience just this last year, since I got back into it and being hot and heavy in it really a lot because of the storms, the 2 hurricanes especially, like actually seeing it and seeing how bad it still is.
Mm.
FEMA is as corrupt as hell. I mean, we talk about the other organizations. That's ones that goes under the radar, and they're huge. They're monstrous, and they waste buttloads of money. And they screw the insurance. They screw people over if you have flood insurance
Yeah.
to try to save the
yeah.
government money when all they really need to do is just start firing up at top and eliminating a lot of those positions that are 6 and 7 figure positions. And I don't give a shit if anybody at FEMA ever uses them. I don't give two shits. Because it's extremely corrupt organization, but it always flies under the radar because it's FEMA. It's not border security. It's not intelligence. And they waste more money than anybody else. And I've seen it this storm already. And I've seen what Jason's talking about too, where it comes to the little guys that are actually face to face with the people, not the people sitting in the office. They're the ones that are getting axed. And I'm not in agreement with that, unless you just aren't doing your job. But then I'm going to tell you, and I'm going to axe you because you're direct line with me. I'm going to say, hey, you're a shit show, dude. Sorry, you're gone.
Yeah.
But that's because I'm experiencing that with that person.
And going along with what Chris just said, that's another thing that is like gets me fired up is this, and I'm going to call it what it is, absolute bullshit that federal workers don't do anything, that we sit at home all day. We don't do anything at all. You know, does that happen? Of course, I'm sure it happens, but it happens in the private industry just as well.
Of course,
I could walk 2 stores down, 2 buildings down, and I'm sure they could point out somebody who doesn't do shit all day. But the blanket, and I'm going to say it, this president to blanket all federal workers as, lazy, we don't do anything. That is absolute. What's that?
Malingerers.
Exactly. Absolute and utter bullshit. And it's an insult to me and to the people who do their job every day supporting the war fighter, that everybody claims to love, the military and what we do directly supports and impacts them. And if we didn't do it, if we all walked off our job or we all got fired, the war fighter would be the one that's screwed. So that's an insult. And I will not take that. I will say it to his face and anyone else's, and I don't care.
Thanks for checking out Battle Line Podcast. This is just a smaller clip from our latest episode, which you can check out in its entirety by clicking here. While you're watching, be sure to hit the subscribe button and thumbs up the video to show your support. Now, if you'd really like to help us out, click the thanks button below to make a donation. It goes directly to us in keeping Battle Line Podcast going.